The distress beacon wasn't just a cry for help, it was a scream across the void. For years, the Galactic Council had dismissed humanity as little more than an anomaly. A race too young, too reckless, too emotional. They were kept at arm's length, denied access to the most crucial alliances, and relegated to the fringes of the great galactic stage. But then the Drakthal arrived. The monstrous, insectoid warlords emerged from the dark spaces between galaxies, their ships blotting out the stars as they descended upon the unsuspecting planets of the Council. No one had seen an invasion like this before. The Drakthal didn't demand surrender. They didn't negotiate. They simply descended, tore through defenses like paper, and left nothing but silence in their wake. World after world fell. The Council, once bloated with bureaucracy and political maneuvering, found itself paralyzed. Every species was too afraid to move first, too afraid to send fleets, too afraid to stand up to a war machine that could not be reasoned with. Until a desperate Council member, one of the few who believed in action, made a call that would change the course of history. They sent a message to Earth. Mars Defense HQ Sol System. Admiral Jacob Hargraves stared at the transmission. This had to be a joke. For decades, the Galactic Council had refused to acknowledge humanity's military capabilities. They'd scoffed at Earth's advancements, dismissing their fleets as primitive, their strategies as barbaric. And now they were begging. He leaned forward, eyes scanning the panicked face of the alien ambassador. "Please," the creature stammered. "The Drakthal have reached the mid-core worlds. The Council is crumbling. We have nowhere else to turn." Hargraves exhaled slowly. He glanced at the officers standing at attention behind him. The same men and women who had spent their careers watching humanity be ignored, ridiculed, sidelined. And now, when things got messy, when the great and powerful Council found itself drowning, they wanted humanity to clean it up. Hargraves let the silence stretch. Let them sweat. Then he stood up, straightened his uniform, and spoke. "Transmit this response." He turned toward the communications officer, eyes cold as steel. "Humanity hears your distress call. And we are coming." The response shook the galaxy. No one believed humanity would actually respond. The Council had mistreated them for years. Why would they care? Why risk their fleets, their soldiers, their worlds? But they didn't understand humanity. They didn't understand that humans had never needed the Council's approval. They didn't fight for politics. They fought because it was right. And when the first human warships tore into Drakthal-occupied space, the galaxy realized their mistake. Because humanity did not come with peace offerings. They came with firepower. The first human warships emerged from the void like spectral giants, their hulls gleaming with the cold light of distant stars. The Galactic Council had assumed the Drakthal were unstoppable. That no species could counter their brutal tactics, their overwhelming numbers, their sheer ferocity. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The UHS Titan, the pride of humanity's fleet, led the charge. A dreadnought unlike anything the Council had ever seen, bristling with railguns, mass drivers, and kinetic impact cannons. Flanking it were battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers loaded with squadrons of next-gen fighters, all moving with a precision that made it clear. Humanity was not here to negotiate. Drakthal-occupied space, Council world Vornis. The skies above Vornis were on fire. The Drakthal swarms moved in their usual formation, chaotic, overwhelming, crushing. They had seen the same desperate tactics from countless species before. A weak, scrambling defense. A last-ditch, doomed effort to resist the inevitable. They expected humanity to break. Instead, they met something far worse. The first kinetic lance fired from the UHS Titan did not stop. It did not slow down. It ripped through the lead Drakthal warship at near-light speed, tearing straight through 3 more behind it before finally shattering into the planet's upper atmosphere. A single shot. 4 kills. And that was just the beginning. Vornis orbit. Target locked. Firing solution acquired. Captain Rosa Valdez grinned as she watched the tactical readouts. The Drakthal, for all their brutality, had never faced weapons designed for them. Let's show them what humanity does to monsters. Fire at will. The void lit up. Railguns thundered, hurling tungsten slugs faster than the mind could process. Fighters wove through enemy formations with impossible agility, unleashing payloads of magnetically accelerated warheads. Drakthal ships, designed for close-quarters boarding and overwhelming firepower, found themselves torn apart before they even got into range. It was a massacre. And the message was clear. Humanity was not here to die. They were here to kill. Council War Room. The Grand Chamber was silent. Representatives from a dozen species watched the unfolding battle with expressions ranging from shock to outright horror. The Drakthul, the invincible nightmares that had crushed world after world, were being eradicated. Ambassador Jorvax of the Zalari turned to his human counterpart, pale blue skin taking on an almost translucent hue in disbelief. We thought you would send a fleet to hold the line," he whispered. "To slow them down. But this is—" The human ambassador, James Whitaker, simply stared at the screen, watching the carnage unfold with an impassive expression. "This," he said, "is what happens when you back humanity into a corner." A Drakthul flagship tried to break from the fight, its remaining forces scattering. The UHS Titan locked onto it instantly. One last shot. The kinetic lance fired, the flagship detonating in a brilliant explosion visible from the planet's surface. The council chamber was dead silent. And then, for the first time in history, the Galactic Council understood exactly what they had unleashed. Humanity had answered their cry for help. And they had answered with firepower. The debris of shattered Drakthul warships rained down upon Vornis, painting streaks of fire across the sky. On the ground, remnants of the Drakthul occupation force looked up in horror as their once invincible fleet was no more. But humanity wasn't done yet. Troop carriers, gunships, and drop pods began their descent, streaking toward the surface like vengeful meteors. The UHS Warborn, a Titan-class carrier, deployed an entire legion of mechanized infantry, their power armor gleaming under the burning atmosphere. All ground teams, weapons free. Wipe them out. Cities that had suffered under the Drakthul's rule for years now watched as humanity's wrath descended upon their captors. The streets of Vornis ran red. Humanity was not just here to win. They were here to make sure the Drakthul never forgot what they had awakened. Drakthul High Command, Deep Space. The remaining Drakthul warlords watched the battle in disbelief. This was not how things were supposed to go. This was not possible. Humanity had been labeled as young, reckless, another species to be crushed. Yet here they were, annihilating an entire Drakthul invasion force in a single battle. The largest of the warlords, clad in ceremonial armor of vanquished foes, turned to his advisors. His voice, usually full of arrogant confidence, was strained. "Summon the Death Fleet." The advisors flinched. The Death Fleet was their final resort. A force so massive, so devastating, that even the mightiest civilizations in the galaxy had crumbled before it. "Humanity has declared war," the warlord growled. "Then war they shall have." In the void beyond, hundreds of beacons activated, sending signals deep into the cold, dark recesses of the galaxy. Humanity had won a battle. But the war was just beginning. The wreckage of the Drakthul fleet drifted through Vornis orbit, burning fragments illuminating the void like dying embers. The Galactic Council had watched, stunned, as humanity did the unthinkable. But the war was far from over. The Drakthul never ran, never surrendered, and now they were about to show why. Deep Space Drakthul Command Nexus. The supreme warbringer of the Drakthul, a towering beast encased in living armor, slammed a clawed fist onto the war table. Holographic projections of their shattered fleet flickered before him. This was unacceptable. "Humanity, these creatures defy the natural order," he roared. His generals snarled in agreement. No species had ever inflicted such devastation upon them. The weak were meant to submit, to be crushed. Yet these humans fought like predators, not prey. "Deploy the Voidfang Armada. Summon the Harbingers. We will remind them who rules the stars." Across the Drakthul Empire, entire fleets began mobilizing. Warships, larger than cities, emerged from the abyss of deep space. Behemoths known as planet killers, whose primary weapons could shatter moons, moved into formation. "Burn their worlds," the Supreme Warbringer commanded. "Leave nothing but ash." UHS Titan Vornis orbit. Captain Valdez stared at the incoming transmissions. The reports were grim. Thousands of Drakthul warships were inbound, moving faster than expected. If the first wave was brutal, the next would be annihilation. "Admiral, we need reinforcements. We can't hold this alone." Admiral Hawthorne's voice came through the bridge speakers, cold and resolute. "You won't have to. The fleet is inbound. And we have a surprise for them." The comms flickered, replaced by live feeds from multiple sectors. One by one, human fleets emerged from slipspace. Dreadnoughts, carriers, hundreds of warships. But there was something else, something bigger. The UHS Behemoth. A planetary-class warship, humanity's final ace. Designed for wars that should never happen. Its primary weapon? A stellar lance, a beam so powerful it could pierce the crust of a planet. Valdez exhaled sharply. Well, if the Drakthol wanted a real war, they've got one. The battle for the galaxy begins. The void erupted. The Drakthol came in waves, monstrous war forms leading their charge. Their boarding pods fired like spears of death, trying to breach human hulls. But this time humanity was ready. Orbital defense grids obliterated incoming pods before they could latch on. Mech divisions launched from carriers, fighting in open space, engaging Drakthol warriors in brutal zero-gravity combat. Every inch of space became a battlefield. The behemoth charged its main cannon. The energy buildup alone sent shockwaves through space. Target locked on enemy command ship. Firing the lance. A beam of condensed stellar fire ripped through the darkness, annihilating everything in its path. The Drakthol command ship, a monstrosity the size of a moon, imploded in an instant. The battlefield paused. And then, the Drakthol screamed. Council Chamber, Galactic Core. Ambassador Jorvax watched in disbelief. They are winning? James Whittaker, arms crossed, smirked. Oh, we're not just winning. We're ending this. Across the battlefield, humanity pushed forward, forcing the Drakthol into full retreat for the first time in galactic history. But humanity wasn't here to retreat. They were here to finish the war. The final stand. The Drakthol fleet, though battered, refused to break. The Supreme Warbringer bellowed a command across the remaining ships. All forces converge. We fight until the void claims us. Massive dreadnoughts maneuvered into a final defensive line, their weapons overcharging, shields flickering under relentless human fire. Then they deployed their last, most terrifying weapon, the Void Singularity Cannons. A series of black, swirling masses formed in space, miniature black holes unleashed toward the human fleet. The gravity wells pulled ships apart, distorting space-time itself. Several human cruisers were instantly ripped to shreds. Valdez gritted his teeth. This was it. All ships execute Omega Maneuver. The human fleet split apart, dodging between the gravity wells, adapting in real time. AI-assisted targeting systems plotted trajectories at impossible speeds. Fighters swarmed the Drakthol dreadnoughts, disabling their weapons with pinpoint precision strikes. Bring the behemoth in close. We end this now. The behemoth surged forward, its stellar lance charging one final time. But the Drakthol were desperate. They rammed their remaining warships into it, trying to sacrifice everything to stop humanity's ultimate weapon. Explosions rocked the massive warship. Alarms blared. But the lance continued charging. Fire. A colossal beam erupted from the behemoth, slicing through the heart of the Drakthol fleet. The Supreme Warbringer's ship disintegrated, along with thousands of his warriors. The black holes collapsed and the battlefield fell silent. The aftermath. The Galactic Council chamber was eerily silent. Jorvax, once arrogant, now looked upon the humans with awe. They have done it, the Drakthol are finished. James Whittaker stepped forward, voice calm but firm. Humanity didn't start this war. But we damn well ended it. Across the stars the news spread, the Drakthol Empire had fallen. Humanity, once dismissed as a backwater species, had reshaped galactic history. And now the galaxy belonged to them. The void was eerily silent. Where once a monstrous Drakthol fleet darkened the stars, now only wreckage drifted. Humanity had done the impossible. On the bridge of the UHS Titan, Captain Valdez exhaled slowly. His crew, bloodied and exhausted, watched the battlefield in stunned silence. The final enemy flagship had been obliterated, its remains falling into the gravity well of a dead moon. Status report, Valdez rasped. A battered lieutenant glanced at his console. Minimal human losses. The behemoth was damaged but operational. The war was over. Galactic Council Chamber. The council members sat in shock. The Drakthol, the oldest, most feared empire in the galaxy, was no more. Ambassador Jorvax, once so dismissive of humanity, spoke in a hushed tone. We underestimated them. James Whittaker stood before them, arms crossed. The new power in the galaxy. You called for help. We answered. We didn't start this war, but we finished it. And now the rules change. The chamber was silent. For the first time, the council wasn't dictating terms. Humanity was. No more submission. No more appeasement of tyrants. The galaxy will stand together or it will fall apart. Your choice. Slowly, one by one, the ambassadors nodded. A new age had begun. Vornis surface. The once occupied world of Vornis stood in stunned disbelief. The Drakthol had ruled them for centuries, their skies forever darkened by enemy warships. Now those same warships lay in ruin, and the humans, their unexpected saviors, stood victorious. A crowd gathered as the first human troops set foot on the planet. Children, once too afraid to speak above a whisper, cheered. Families, torn apart by years of oppression, embraced in the streets. A Vornian elder stepped forward, bowing his head to the approaching human soldiers. "You have given us back our world. How can we ever repay you?" The soldier removed his helmet, offering a weary smile. "Just remember, when the galaxy called for help, humanity answered." The final message. Across the stars, news spread like wildfire. Planets under the heel of oppressors rose up. The weak and the forgotten found hope again. The age of fear was over. And at the heart of it all, humanity stood unbowed. A warning was broadcast to all remaining warlords, slavers, and tyrants. Humanity is watching. If you bring war to the innocent, we will bring fire. Final scene, Earth 1 year later. The night sky over Earth was brighter than ever. New stars, new alliances, new futures forged in fire. Humanity, once seen as a backwater species, now stood as the guardians of the galaxy. On the moon, a memorial stood, a reminder of the fallen, of those who had sacrificed for peace. Engraved upon its surface were words that would echo through history. "We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But if darkness comes, we will answer. And we will not lose." As the words echoed across the galaxy, fleets formed new alliances, once fractured species united, and the embers of hope grew into an unbreakable flame. The message was clear: humanity had arrived and the future would never be the same. The end.